we are gonna summarize now, like what are the best layers of protection, whether you're doing short-term rentals, commercial properties, you have multiple LLCs, and Jeff's gonna walk us through exactly the best summary and the best protection for you.
Perfect. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan of layered asset protection, right? Now, what does that mean? That means we need as many layers of protection between you and the attorney trying to bring the lawsuit against you. And so we've covered some of them already, Ed. I know we've discussed a few of them. One that we didn't spend a whole lot of time on is a lease agreement. Now, this is very specific. This is very important for short-term rentals without getting too in depth here. But can I tell you, do not trust Airbnb and VRBO for the lease agreements, because they're a platform. If you haul someone into court and you want to evict them, in fact, there was a story recently that came up where there was a woman who's been living in an Airbnb in California, I think for almost a year or over a year, and they can't evict her. They didn't have a lease agreement. They didn't handle it properly. So the point is, this lease agreement needs to set the rules for the relationship. And if you trust on Airbnb or VRBO to set those rules, they don't care. And the court's not going to care. The court's going to say, what was your contract? Show me your contract. This is critical. You can also use what's called liability waivers to help shift the risk of using certain amenities on your property over onto the guest. They initial it. They understand when they come in, they're assuming the risk of that activity. It can help you. You can actually bring a summary judgment against them in court to sometimes get that lawsuit thrown out preemptively if you have a good lease agreement. That's number one. Number two, insurance. We talked about this. If you're doing short-term rentals, you need commercial insurance, right? We went over this and the importance of this. Layer number one, layer number two. I don't know that I went into it too in depth, but you need 1 to 2 million in premises liability coverage.
Correct. Okay.
That's key here. That's a big part of that. Then number three, that's when we start getting into LLCs, right? You need to make sure you have the property in an LLC. We discussed that in depth. That is the next layer. Then we start talking about holding company strategies. And even the better and best that I discussed with you, that is a holding company strategy, right? Both of those integrate that. Finally, that's when you get into even more advanced strategies, which you can take advantage of trusts. If you use a trust, and I'm going to tell you, I work with a lot of doctors, they're worried about being sued from a top-down attack, which means they're afraid of being sued for medical malpractice. They're being sued for those type of issues. What if you get in a car accident and it's above the limits that you have on your car accident coverage, right? Your personal injury protection. You can use multiple different types of trusts, revocable trust, irrevocable trust. The point I want to make is this is important to consider every layer. At STR Law Guys, we actually address each and every one of these issues because to me, it's important to have all the layers with the boxes checked, not just one.
I love it. And so by doing this, it makes it practically impossible to sue you because you're making, and the reason that is because you're making it so you're de-incentivizing the attorney from going after you and saying you just got to go after their insurance.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
That's where we want to be.
Look, this is all about, everybody here, if you're an investor, knows this. You want to mitigate risk.
Yep.
That's why you do your due diligence on a property. That's why you run P&Ls. That's why you do all of that. This is risk mitigation for protecting all the wealth you're spending all your time building.
All right, Jeff, so this has been amazing. We've gone through the good plan, better plan, best plan. Before we go into like how people can work with you and stuff like that, do you mind sharing, is there any other case studies that you can share of like people that had this set up correctly? And then like when lawsuits came, it was, I guess, and you don't have to be too in depth on it, but what does it look like when this is going well?
Yeah, so the example that I gave earlier, which is showing the best structure.
Yeah.
I have a high net worth client who the only way he knew that this became an issue for him, there was a lawsuit initially that it was brought, another slip and fall claim. Wasn't worth, I don't know that it was really a legitimate claim. I think the same person that brought the claim had brought a lawsuit against another short-term rental owner previously. But he didn't even hardly realize anything had happened, because what happened was the personal injury lawyer brought against the insurance company. They tried to file against the insurance company, originally filed a lawsuit against the underlying LLC in Tennessee. But here's what happened. He could never find out who owned it. So he didn't know who he was up against. He also found out that there was charging order protection. So there was only a demand letter sent, no actual lawsuit ever filed. Wow. So here's why I know that's important. Because if this person did not have that in place at the time, I know, because having been a personal injury lawyer, he would have taken it to the next step. So it's hard to say, like, Jeff, can you give me an example of someone that went all the way up to a trial and they won because of the structure? Part of the protection of the structure
you never get there.
Is that it doesn't get that far.
It's the whole idea of you become very hard to sue.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, which de-incentivizes the attorney. I've said this a couple times, but I think I think that is the key thing, is you're trying to make it so they don't want to go near you. They're like, hey, we'll deal with the insurance companies. Keeps everyone out of it. Question I have for you is there anything that people can do prior to even renting? Like, do you do background checks? Is there any other mitigation stuff that you do, or is it just really not, you don't see it as necessary? Well, so how do you do it with your properties, I guess? I'm going off script here. I'm just kind of like, I'm really curious how you do it.
Vetting people?
Yeah, like vetting people. Because we even had an incident this week where something didn't sound right. They were trying to get in there really quick, and it was like, we just did a quick background check. We're like, oh wow, they've had like 5 small claims court things in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Like they have a pattern of lawsuits.
That's actually a really good point. I know there are some tech solutions that are out there, including insurers. There's one called Safely, another one called Superhog, which is they are newer insurance type arrangements that essentially what they'll do is they provide additional insurance per stay. Yeah. And sometimes what they'll do is, based on which package you try to use with them, they can actually run backgrounds on people. Yeah. And one of the things that can happen is to help put you in a position, if you got a lot of people coming in and out, it's something you got to make sure you pay someone else to keep up with. Yeah, 100%. And at STR Law Guys, our main thing is to do that no matter who you have coming in. Yeah,
you're solid. I was asking more just on your own personal investment strategies.
Yeah. So, now I have access to databases and things like that I can actually run people's, they have to provide me a short-term rental lease agreement. They sign off on every one of them, so I know who all the guests are. One of the things I put on my lease agreement is I need to know who everyone is that is staying, right. And I require them to give me their driver's license number, because I need to know which vehicles are coming and who are coming to stay. Yeah. And you can run backgrounds on those. You can find out on that whether or not, I will tell you this: the more you have to lose, the type of properties and the larger your portfolio, you can outsource that and make that happen. I do that on one of my bigger properties, particularly, that I charge, anywhere between $1,500 to $5,000 a night.
So just out of curiosity more, like, why do you want everyone's driver's license, or who's there, plus the cars?
Great question. So sometimes you deal with HOAs, and if they go off premises, this goes back to insurance too. If they go off premises, off your immediate property, and cause a problem. Let's say they're going to an HOA shared amenities, or a condo. This happens a lot with condos, where they're going to come and park in the condo parking, but then they're going to go use the shared pool and hot tub and all those resources. What if they cause a problem with those resources? What if they cause a problem in that parking lot? With HOAs, many times they will hold you responsible even if they pick up citations or tickets or cause property damage outside of your property area. For me, I say, listen, these are the rules for the relationship on that short-term rental lease agreement. And some people will push back and go, whoa. But if they do, I don't know if I want that guest.
That's right.
I'm doing my own personal vetting. If this is a good guest, they're not going to care about that because they're not going to cause a problem.
Yeah. Well, because I think one of the things that's just probably, especially if you have a vacation home that's bigger, like say it can sleep 8, 12, 15, 20, right. And you're renting and they say on paper like, oh, we're bringing 10. You don't want 30 people showing up there and it going crazy. So that's one of the reasons I was just asking on that, which I know there's ways to handle that as well, but.
Yeah, we use, Ring cameras, noise aware software. There's lots of things that we can do to be able to really, from a tech perspective, look and see what people are doing. and we really monitor that. I also have a boots on the ground guy who's literally 2 minutes away if anything happens and I need him. My cleaners are on top of it. These are all things that we create standard operating procedures for. So if any issue comes up, this is exactly how you follow it. And now it becomes a business that you're not having to spend all your time running.
Man, we gotta. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now. I think if people work with you, you should make that standard operating procedure checklist available to any of your
Great idea.
your
Happy
clients.
to do it.
Happy to do it. Okay, cool. So I'm working on your behalf right now. I'm just letting you know, right?